morning, good afternoon, good evening. One of the favorite tricks of conmen is to move the issues, to avoid discussing what has happened in the past so that they are not held to account for it, and instead concentrate on the future. Mnangagwa created the Second Republic and his so-called Vision 2030 in 2017, soon after he took over power from Mugabe. That was deliberate. He did not want to be held to account for what Mugabe had been doing for 37 years. Although Mnangagwa had been in that Mugabe regime for all those years. Indeed, Mnangagwa had been one of the big players in maintaining the Zanu PF dictatorship. And yet when it suits him, he wants to completely dissociate himself from it and pretend as if he had absolutely nothing to do with it. This is a favorite trick of conmen. I'd like to play this video clip of this lady in South Africa who, I believe, is addressing that very point and asking President Cyril Ramaphosa to account for what he did in the past. My apologies, for some reason it's not playing. I'll reload it. Ben, what do you think?
In as much as they would want to deny the fact, I mean, history will serve itself, quite clearly. What happened was they were all part and parcel of the First Republic. However, they fought amongst themselves and then they became two factions. The Lacoste and the guys that were with Grace Mugabe. I forgot the faction's name. And the Lacoste, which was Mnangagwa one.
The G40.
And then G40. Thank you for that. Thank you. The G40 lost and the Lacoste under Mnangagwa won. And then they chased these ones away. But they were part and parcel of that, First Republic. In fact, Mnangagwa himself was vice president of that First Republic. And most of all, if not all, that are within this year Second Republic, whether it be ministers or whatever, they were part and parcel of the same Zanu PF. So now they cannot say, what happened in the First Republic has got absolutely nothing to do with us. That is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. They were part and parcel of it. They were there, their pictures are there, they were in the videos, and they were singing praise for Mugabe at all points. It's just that, they just want to wash their hands and make themselves look clean, But they are not clean.
I totally agree with you. Here's a video clip that I promised you earlier on.
Political parties that want to make a difference, want to make it into parliament, your reaction to this particular speech? See, we got exactly what we expected. Big English, reasonable delivery, eloquence here and there, but it is a very empty, devoid of truth and impotent address. Firstly, I have held this microphone that you're holding now, Slee. I've walked through the corridors of Parliament. I can tell you now for free, the ANC government neither has the desire nor the ability to implement anything that the President has had to say. And they are inhibiting good and well-meaning civil servants from doing the same. Where are the bullet trains? Where are the houses of Alex? Where is the smart city? Where is the uninterrupted power supply? And yet the President has the sheer audacity, the gall, the liver, to speak about things like state capture as if they were committed by aliens from outer space. Mr. President, you were the Deputy President during state capture. It was you who enabled state capture. It was you who supported it. And even now as we speak, you're aiding and abetting, because those who are responsible for state capture were right there with you in that room. And in closing, Slee, he then speaks about Ntwalo. Well, may God have mercy on her soul. She's living in an RDP house that is falling apart because it was built with inferior material so that politicians can get kickbacks. She goes to a hospital with no doctors, even though there are a dime a dozen ministers in the presidency. She goes to a school with dilapidated infrastructure. Her parents don't have jobs. And don't get me started on NAFSIS, because it has not even paid her registration. And yet children are going through orientation as we speak. So, Mr. President, we are not measuring South Africa against any developed country or even developing country. We are measuring South Africa against its own potential. We are lacking, we are regressing, and it is not because of anything other than the ANC government. Thank you.
Well, that is an impassioned address. And I think one cannot deny that what she's saying is very true. The problem we have had, particularly in the case of Zimbabwe, is the failure to hold our leaders to account. We have been willing to accept that they can move the goalposts. I think it really is an outrage that in 2017, when Mnangagwa seized power, he was able to move the goalposts with so relative ease. In fact, if anything at all, many people agreed that he should move the goalpost. The number of people who were talking of, let's give him another chance, is absolutely unbelievable. Here is one of Zimbabwe's leading opinion makers, Trevor Ngube, speaking of the same thing.
And I was one of those people that stood up, first of all, perhaps the first people that stood up and said, give Emmerson Mnangagwa a chance, and how wrong I was. But why did I say that? I say that because I said, this man has sat in the same room with Robert Mugabe. He's seen what Robert Mugabe did in the country. Maybe he's really interested in turning things around. Point number one. Point number two, this man played a role as far as Gukurawondi is concerned, the massacre of over 20,000 people in Matabeleland. Maybe it's time for him to make amends for that. So I was generous in my spirit as a God-fearing man that this man was about to do a turnaround. Again, was I disappointed. I was actually approached and agreed to serve in the Presidential Advisory Council. So I've been, as I've said, at close range with the President, advising him on a number of issues. But I've since retired, stepped down, because I can see this thing is not going to end well. I think the lesson that we've gotten, all of us, is that anybody who embarks on a coup does not usually do so because they want to promote democracy, widen economic prosperity, and so forth. The people that launched the coup in Zimbabwe were interested in protecting their small personal interests ethnic interests, business interests, and economic interests. It was not for the benefit of everybody else, and we are seeing it in terms of from what has been happening since 2017. So what has been happening? We have seen. We thought Robert Mugabe was bad, but sadly, President Mnangagwa has shown an amazing degree of doing things worse than Robert Mugabe ever did. Perhaps the most frightening thing that President Mnangagwa has done is the mutilation of our constitution and the capture of our judiciary.
Ben, what do you think?
You know, when the 2017 coup was unfolding, I said a leopard cannot just get rid of its spots just like that. It's impossible. And I must agree with you there to say a lot of people, you know, decided, no, he was the right man for the job. Let's give him a chance. You know, he's got a brilliant mind and all that. I said, it is impossible. Because these are the same guys that were advising Mugabe. Mugabe was finished proper. Mugabe lost the 2008 election and was ready to give up. But these guys pushed on to say, no, you are not going anywhere because we are not going. And then they were in charge of the whole setup beyond. You know, I must agree with you again to say it was. I don't know what is wrong with Zimbabweans. At first glimpse of something, they follow. You know, they forget everything that has happened before and will gladly follow. I mean, you saw the videos, the pictures of jubilation and excitement with the soldiers and everything. Even if SADC wanted to say, no, you guys, you cannot do this, this is a coup, I believe Zimbabwe would have gone, all Zimbabweans would have gone up against SADC to say, no, what are you doing? Stay out of our business. We were so happy, so convinced that we had gotten the same guy. And what we are witnessing now is just a continuation. That's why you find Mugabe went with his sanctions. The first thing, they gave him more sanctions. It is just the same thing. Whatever Mugabe was doing, he's doing 100-fold. The Look East policies, they're still there. Everything, whatever you're looking at with the Second Republic is times 2 worse than what it was with the First Republic. There's nothing that has changed, and Zimbabweans have always sold themselves so short.
Well, my closing remark, I would like to base it on trying to explain that people should understand that democratic accountability is dependent on the accounting for what you did. To say, no, forget what I did in the past, let's concentrate on tomorrow, is to lose the real value of democratic accountability. Take, for instance, this issue of Vision 2030. We know Mnangagwa is pushing for it, pushing hard for it. The economic mess that he helped create during the Mugabe regime, he's still blaming it for the economic mess we have today. Give me a chance, give me more time to work on it. The truth of the matter is, come 2030, and the country is still living in abject poverty. Millions are still living in abject poverty. The country is still a failed state. What then? We can't rewind the clock. We will have lost the opportunity to revive the economy. We can't hold him to account. It's too late. Because we can't reverse the clock. And if we can't hold him to account now, what makes us believe that even if he was to stay in power beyond 2030, we can hold him to account? Indeed, he is planning to rig the 2028 elections. And if by then we still believe, well, let's give him more time, come 2030, we realize, no, that vision 2030 was just a mirage. We can't remove him from office. Because once he has been elected, he's got another 3 years to run. The next election will be 2033. We have got to be smart enough to realize that democratic accountability is the one power that the ordinary people have to hold those in positions of power and authority to account. And you hold people to account for what they did. And God knows, after 44 years of this Zanu PF regime, this Zanu PF regime has a lot to account for. Why we will have to wait until 2030 to hold Zanu PF to account beggars belief. Why we fell foolishly into believing in 2017 that we should give Mnangagwa a chance. Beggars belief. He had been a senior member of the Mugabe regime ever since the country's independence. He had a lot to account for, not least of which the Gokura Wundi, the electoral coup of 2008. He himself admits that he was responsible for telling Mugabe, no, you should not go away. Stay there. Concentrate in forming your cabinet. How did he know that Mugabe was going to win that election? That Mugabe should concentrate on forming a cabinet when everybody else was saying Mugabe had lost that election. Of course, it was a political coup, an electoral coup. And so he is the man who was responsible for imposing Zanu PF on the nation for 37 years. Then suddenly he gets into power and says, I'm creating a second republic. I have nothing to do with what happened in the past. Here is my vision 2030. I can rig elections, and you should not hold me to account until vision 2030. I think we have fallen into the trap, and we have been unbelievably naive and gullible. I think the people of Zimbabwe must wake up. This is totally unacceptable. Zanu PF and Mnangagwa rigged 2023 elections. And we should not be distracted by his promise of vision 2030 or whatever. We should concentrate on that, hold him to account. This regime is illegitimate. We do not have to wait for the next election to say it out and demand that we want a legitimate government. That is the number one message I would like to send to the people of Zimbabwe today. Thank you very much, Ben. Do you want to give your closing remarks?
Thank you. In closing, I would want to say the current crop of politicians that we have are a failure on both sides of the political divide, whether it be the opposition or this current regime. They are a failure. How we cannot see that is just beyond imagination. I cannot comprehend it. Whatever they have promised, they have failed to deliver. why then do we keep on sticking with that rot? We can blame, the people in the rural areas. They know, they don't know much better, and besides, they are forced. What is your excuse, me and you, that are learned, that are in towns, that experience the day-to-day living and the hustles and bustles of life under this regime? What is our excuse? We don't have any. So I would put all the blame on those that should know better, but are still continuing to do the, I don't know how to put it in words, the most useless decisions ever. I hope, we learn something from this. A leopard can never just get rid of his spots just like that. It's impossible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. And to those who were able to join us, thank you very much. I hope you'll be able to join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock UK time, or 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Thank you again, Ben, and good night.
Good night, you all.